Throughout the book of Romans, Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, is mainly writing to the Gentile believers in Rome. And he makes allusion often, directly, to Jewish people as well, but particularly in emphasizing to those Gentile believers that God is not through with Israel. He's not through with the Jewish people, even though many amongst the Gentiles there thought that, well, because the leadership, because many of the Jews rejected Yeshua's claim as the Messiah, that God had rejected them. Of course, we know that's not true, and Paul emphasizes it over and over, starting in the first chapter where he says it's the gospel is to the Jew first and then also to the Gentile, and then he spends Romans 9 through 11 emphasizing over and over again that God is not done with Israel, that they're still the people of the covenant, and so on. And even though Paul, was called to minister to the Gentiles, wherever he went on his way, he always went to the synagogues first to preach to the Jewish people, his fellow Jews. And in closing out the book of Romans, he encourages the Gentile believers there to take up an offering to bless the poor Jewish people in Jerusalem that were struggling because of the oppression of the Romans. Okay, and so towards the end of the chapter, in verse 25, he says, "But now I am going to Jerusalem, bringing aid to the Kedoshim," bringing aid to the believers in Jerusalem. "For Macedonia and Achaia were pleased to make some contribution for the poor among the believers in Jerusalem." So he's using these others to sort of provoke the Roman believers to jealousy so that they also would contribute. Verse 27, "Yes, they were pleased to do so, and they are under obligation to them. For if the Gentiles have shared in their spiritual blessings, they also ought to serve them in material blessings." In other words, because the Gentiles were recipients of the spiritual blessings that came through the Jews, the disciples who were all Jewish, how much more also then the Gentiles are obligated to bless the Jewish people that were undergoing a hardship in Jerusalem, materially bless them, and hence take up the offering, bless those in Jerusalem.